Perfect. Should say that it's live now.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. I really enjoyed the reading from this week. I thought that it was pretty good. And going through a couple, so the questions for this week, a lot of them are kind of different than they were last week. And so the first question, and we'll just kind of start out with that, is from your personal experience, what have been key behaviors in effective teams? And so kind of open that up to the group. Me personally, it seems like the most effective team, well, I've had the best time that I've had in teams is where I haven't had to do anything. It just kind of happens naturally. Everything that goes on. So it's not like you have to always think ahead and stuff like that. You do kind of your thing, and everyone else kind of just pitches in. And I really enjoyed what kind of Google said, what Google had kind of figured out on that basis of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I work with a team right now of, there's only 6 of us who work in a payroll department for a school district of like probably 5,000 employees.
Wow.
And so that's very few of us to do that job. And I am the young one in there. The rest of them have been working together for about 10 years.
Gotcha.
And I came in, and the one thing I really enjoyed about their teamwork is, although they've worked well together for many, many years, they allowed me to ask questions and feel comfortable asking questions, that openness and that guidance. And so I feel like we have that, where we have our HR department, which is right next to us. We kind of share a room, actually. Mm-hmm. And they are completely opposite. So a lot of them have worked together for a long time too.
Yeah.
But they've had this one position that they cannot keep anyone in. And it just keeps cycling from the next person to the next person, basically because they backbite behind that person. So the teamwork and the way you work together and treat each other and the way you talk makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
I've always found that humor plays a huge role. That if you can talk and laugh, and I probably do it too much. I use a lot of self-deprecating humor just because I can laugh at myself, and I do a lot. So and I think that just sets everybody. When I worked in groups, I talk and make silly faces, and I can be a little bit ridiculous, but it just takes that edge off and just makes everybody a little bit more comfortable. Okay, we can all be real, and I like to have a good time and work and laugh, and
for sure.
To me it works. At least I think it works. I don't know about everybody else.
No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I found too, is like one of my favorite like districts on my mission was like we just had a lot of fun, but still were like, I don't know, diligent, but we were able to joke around, and it actually made it a lot more enjoyable than a couple of the other districts I'd been in.
I agree. I think one of the other things for me was that being open and communicating, because not everyone is a mind reader. It's better to speak up and say, what your thoughts are. So that way, I know at work, we bounce a lot of things off each other. And that helps to kind of see, the direction, where the team needs to go, or, what we're doing, because we're not all mind readers.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just put that I think that it's important to have your opinions and your feelings validated. That, you know, when you do share your opinions, people are open to them. Yeah.
I think that women sometimes are often a lot better at the whole validating factor of things. I think that guys sometimes just they're like, "Oh, cool." Like,
We completely agree with you, Matt.
yeah. I've learned that very much so, especially being married. It just
It's so true.
it goes a
Communication is
long
key.
way if you validate feelings.
Yeah.
Very true.
We hear some
Well-
experience coming through there.
You're very wise, you young Padawan.
Yeah.
Well, and I just got put in a presidency at church, and this is where I am seeing so much of this is so church service related. And two of the sisters in the presidency, each of them had a completely different opinion about who to put in for a calling. And so it was like, okay, how do we figure this out? And we talked it out, and both of them are gonna, the two people, this one said this one that, and we just talked it out. And by the end of the conversation, everybody was like, okay, yeah, that works great. Where it could have been, she didn't pick the sister I wanted. And I don't think that, it could have gotten ugly, but by talking it through, everybody, oh, okay, she understands where I'm coming from, this and that, and we made it work. So,
Oh yeah.
So validating, you're totally right, Samantha, about that. And girls need that.
For sure. One thing that I did like that I had kind of talked about that in kind of connection with that in the it wasn't really like a case study, it was more of like an article, was how they talked about how he had shared like his experience with cancer with them.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was kind of interesting that like they were all like super gung-ho and like, wow, like I had this happen too, or something like that. And like a hard breakup, and that like actually brought them closer together. But I think that some groups, you could tell me that I'm wrong, but I feel like some groups wouldn't work as well that way. Am I speaking
No,
about
I agree with you, Matthew. I've had that experience where sometimes you're not in a group where you want to be vulnerable, or it's a good idea to be vulnerable because you know it'll be used against you. And not necessarily by the whole group, but there might be that one person in the group that that definitely, yeah, I've had that happen where shared something and then it was used against me continuously, brought up during meetings and stuff, and it was just like it wasn't a good experience. And so I think you have to be careful. I think it can work in some groups, definitely, but I do think in some groups you have to be a little careful with that.
I agree with that.
So I don't know if anyone read my discussion post yet on this, but one of the schools I worked in for actually quite a number of years, it was a middle school, and it takes a special group of adults to run a middle school because that is a really tough age. But it was really fun. But I worked there for like 3 years, and I got to know the staff, and they all knew me, but you don't really get to know the staff. And so one year our school district paid for a trainer to come up and start training our entire school district in what's called capturing kids' hearts. And we had it was several days of training, but in the first day he he kind of lightened things up a little bit, introduced himself, and then he turned the time over to all of us. And we weren't, when we came in, we weren't allowed to sit wherever we wanted to sit. We were all, our names were in a spot, and we couldn't move. And that was everyone's first red flag of like, oh, I sit here for 2 days and I can't even sit with my friends, you know? But in the course of the next few hours, he had us do an exercise where we all had to open up and talk sincerely about ourselves and our struggles and our accomplishments. And I learned so much about the people at my table that my relationship changed with them. And we actually had the kids, this was before school started. So on the very first day of school, we actually had kids saying, what did you guys do over the summer? Why is everyone so different? Why are you all so happy? And it changed the whole atmosphere of our school. And instead of teachers like staying in their classrooms as kids were coming and going between passing time, all the teachers were out in the hallway shaking hands with all the kids and talking, and they still do that. And it is really, really cool. It was just neat to get to know people. And then they taught us how to take those skills and use them with the students in a appropriate way. You can't get into certain things with kids, but to have that openness and that talking, it was cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
I guess more what I was kind of saying is just like, and kind of what I think was talking about is that like, especially in the case study, like some groups just don't do that. But I think that if you can do it because it will totally help you out. But
I think there's different levels of what you can open yourself up to. I think the guy in the article, I mean, that's a big, huge personal thing he shared about having stage 4 cancer. I mean, that's pretty intimate detail and really puts you out there. And so I think if you gauge the group, you can kind of see like kind of how, what maybe you can share. But I think Melanie, in your post, you wrote about how when you share a personal thing, you're not strangers anymore, you're friends. You know, when you share something, you have that connection now, so it's not so awkward. You have a friendly or a personal connection now, so it doesn't make it so awkward. You can kind of build from there.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, that girl's right.
Awesome. Okay, so the second question is, what do group norms have to do with effective team building? What would you say your current B321 group norms include? Unspoken and spoken norms are, oh, I should probably just read one at a time, huh? So what do you think our group norms are? Or, sorry, what are the group norms of an effective team?
Well, we are an effective team, right? What do we
I agree. So we'll just talk about them both at the same time. And
yeah. I like that we all contribute and there's not one person just running the game, and like it's not just all about one person. We all can share, and it's safe to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's key what you said. Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I was just gonna say I think it's key what you said about being safe. You know, when you feel safe, you're able to speak freely. And I think that's what we have in our group. Like you said, everybody feels freely to say, you know, what they're thinking without any repercussions or feeling bad. And I feel like everybody feels that way.
I had written there that, you know, we don't talk over each other, that everybody gives some kind of respect. Thank you. You know, everybody respects each other and where we're coming from. And I think it showed really well that, you know, we were all willing to work out with the times, and that, you know, just, I think respect is a baseline group norm. And it's nice because we are all BYU Idaho students, so that usually takes care of some of that. If we don't, we get kicked out of school. So, you know.
Sure. I think that more often I notice kind of the bad things that are going on, like the bad. Like I thought it was interesting how in the Google thing it talked about how like micromanaging is like the enemy of a good group building. I was like, there's a lot of micromanaging that goes on in tree work.
Who would have known?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I mean, some of it's necessary because if some people don't know what to do, they could kill themselves. Like, they could die, and that would be bad. So I think there's a difference between, like, informing people and micromanaging, though. It's a fine line.
Mm-hmm. I was in another presidency. For some reason, it just keeps coming back to haunt me. So, but I had been with, I was a counselor, and the president, she did it all. She did it all herself. And it was to the point where, and it was primary. And I told her, I said, hey, what else can I do? I thought, I'm just coming and babysitting on Sundays. I'm not doing anything. She wasn't giving me any work to do. And she got mad. And I was like, oopsies, I'm just trying to help. And anyway, so we talked it over, we got together, and she had all kinds of stresses and had counselors that hadn't helped. So she had just created this mindset of, it's just easier if I do it myself, because then I don't have to rely on anybody. And it really suffered. Primary itself suffered. We always had teachers calling in. I mean, and we were a little ward, so it was just really stressful. And then I got called as president, and I thought, okay, I can't do this all on my own. And she's an amazing woman, and she likes to do stuff way over the top. You know, me, I get excited if I make a sandwich for lunch, and, you know, she'll make creme brulee. You know, she's a great person. Super talented, but I'm just not at her level. But I let everybody have responsibility over their own callings. So I didn't micromanage, and I just told people, this is what I expect, go. And it was a great experience. I didn't have teachers calling in. You know, everybody was excited. Everybody participated. I made sure the teachers were included in and had communication. And it was just such a completely different experience between the two. And not that she's a bad person or great. She had just, by the time I came along, had run out of steam and just was tired of dealing with people. And I think, you know, we get that. You know, in groups and working with people. So taking into personal considerations that, you know, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but micromanaging is always bad. Full circle. Okay, I'm done for a while.
Well, you're good. Were there any other comments?
I was just gonna say it's something I said last week and in my post last week about the Mary Derby guy. I forgot his name, but some people just cannot manage. There's a difference between being a manager and leading, because not everyone can delegate. Not everyone can speak or be able to handle different personalities. I mean, everybody has different personalities, and you need to be careful sometimes how you speak to someone, and definitely no one wants to be micromanaged, and you have to be able to find your balance. And so I just think not everyone is meant to be manager or leader, but you definitely can find your way of at least working through it, and especially in a team, being able to be respectful and you know, work with others. So
I loved how it talked about in the article about how, like, one of the major determinants of how good a team was how well they could like tell from how someone looked, how they were feeling. As like, and I think it connects pretty well with what you just said. Like, you need to know how people are feeling, and you need to know if you're stepping on someone's feet. Hopefully, try and fix it.
Mm.
Yes, body language and facial features says a lot. Says more than words sometimes, especially for women.
I'm fine. Yeah, fine.
I cannot hide what I'm feeling on my face. That's actually not good all the time. Because you say something stupid or I don't agree with you, it shows. I do not have poker face. And sometimes poker face is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Gotten me in trouble a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
You and I need to balance each other out because I can pull a really good poker face.
Yeah, that would be awesome, Steph. I could use that skill.
All right, we gotta come up with training manuals for each other.
But to be fair, we're pretty. I think we're pretty good at our group norms. I agree that. Do you think that our group norms are healthy?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Same.
So,
So just kind of moving on. You laughing at him?
no, I'm just laughing at this situation.
I'm
I'm just
laughing at you.
A little awkward. A little bit.
See, it's humor. We are a total good group norm.
Yes.
Okay, so the next question is, how does psychological safety in a team increase overall effectiveness? So psychological safety, I imagine, is just being able to say stuff without worrying about being judged or something like that. Right?
Yeah. I said it just like it creates an environment where all team members can participate
Mm-hmm.
and they feel safe to do so. And so because we can all participate, then the effectiveness of the team increases because everyone's
Yeah.
actively.
Exactly what you had said earlier with the person that you were in a group with, that he wasn't, you had to be careful about what you shared.
Well, darn, there goes the star of the show.
I know, right? Let's face it, he's the cute one, so I don't.
And then they turn into 17-year-old boys.
Yeah, right. Not ready for that.
You got some time.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, okay.
But yeah.
So I have a question though. So
Yes.
we'll throw out a little. So yes, I agree psychological safety is important, but is there taking it to an extreme? So like when my son was going to high school during testing week, and I don't know, you might be able to expand on this stuff a little, that for kids in high school, that you could go, if you got test anxiety, you could go to the library. And I'm not kidding. They had a coloring station. They brought in therapy dogs so you could pet a dog. They had like just sensory stations. It was a safe space from the testing world. And it's how far do we go before we become emotionally enabled? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And I have actually never heard of anything like that happening ever.
Oh yeah, he came home and it was in the newsletter, and I'm reading this going, "You're kidding, right? Because you have to take a test. You get to go pet dogs so you can take a test." He's like, "I don't know." He didn't care, and he didn't go to the library. But it's how far do we go before it's not psychological safety, but psychological enabling, so that you can't even function.
Man, that was deep stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
I do think sometimes.
This is probably just a total, like, not part of the, our discussion tonight. But I just feel like society is kind of like that now, where sometimes it's so extreme that sometimes you just gotta suck it up and keep moving. Like, sometimes you have bosses that don't care that you have, your kids were, had a meltdown or were sick and you're late for work, or I don't know, just whatever. And sometimes your thought was very deep, Melanie, because sometimes, like, what is the difference? And sometimes you just got to keep moving. Sometimes life sucks and you got to keep on moving. You can't be, there's a fine line between being overly sensitive and sucking
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the balance comes in to be effective. You have to have that balance, because otherwise you'll have, the roller coaster emotions, and a team can't work with that when somebody's up and somebody's down, and that creates unreliability because you don't know how that person's going to perform for the day. Is this a good day? Is this a bad day? We all know those kinds of people. Okay, let's see how they walk in the door, and that'll tell me where I'm at today.
It's teenagers. Life with teenagers.
Personally, it's hanger for me.
Oh.
If I'm hungry, it's in trouble. Everyone's in trouble. And, like, it's bad enough that, like, we're on jobs, and, like, me and my brother, we work together all the time, and we're both terrible. But, like, if we're being, like, super grumpy, they'll be like, "So, did you eat lunch yet?"
Oh.
And it's like, ooh, boy. Hit more than me, but at least that's what I think.
Actually, for you to be able to acknowledge it and know it, and, like, even off of each other, ask each other, like, have you eaten yet? Oh, that's why, I don't know. To me, that's a huge step, to be able to at least acknowledge it within yourself and someone that you're close to, like, your brother. So that's 10 steps ahead of some people.
Thanks.
So the next time you guys have a hangry fight, say, "Hey, I handle this better than you."
Yeah, right? Yeah, that would go over well.
Yeah. See how that works with your team overall effectiveness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Mm-mm.
All right. Throw out another question. Kind of already answered it, but what are the roles of communication and empathy in creating physiological safety? And just kind of to answer that, I think that a lot of times, like, just like you said, like, just a question of what's wrong, what's really wrong, kind of a thing. I think that depending on your relationship with that person, it can help to build, your relationship as a group and as with each other.
I have a negative experience in this. I don't know if we're supposed to be sharing negative experiences or not. But oh well. It didn't say not to do it. So I was young. I had gosh, I had just gotten married. So I was in my early 20s. I had been working at this office for a few years now. And it just kind of got weird. I could tell there was weird stuff. The other women were being weird to me. And I just was like, something's up. So, and I found we had a shared network, and I found this letter that one of the gals had written to the attorney talking about how horrible I was, and that I thought I was this princess, and that I got to do whatever I wanted. And I'm like, what is going on? And so anyway, I'm 24, I think maybe. I'm 24, and everybody else is 40 plus in this. And they were getting all mad at me for whatever it was. And so then my boss tells me, well, you need to go out to lunch with her and see. And so I go out to lunch, and I'm like, what's wrong? Is there something I can do? And no, yeah, come back. I find out she went back to him and goes, she's completely naive as to all that she's doing. So anyway,
Oh my.
one of them ended up quitting, and because they didn't think they were handling me right. I don't know. And after months, I find out. So one of the lead attorneys pulls me in, and he goes, so I have to apologize to you. They've been keeping time on you and writing down everything that they didn't like that you had done. I was like, are you kidding me? So for like 3 months, the one had kept my time, but she left half the day. So if I got in later, she never saw what time I left, or she didn't calculate when I would work at my desk, when I would take lunch at my desk, none of that. And he did apologize and said, we shouldn't have done that, but this was all behind your back and you didn't know. And so when we talk about that psychological safety, from there on out, I stepped back, and I stayed there because the one had left and they had said, we'll take care of this. And it was fine. But from there on, I had walls up and very cautious and very guarded. So there's the negative effect when you don't communicate and you don't empathize, and they didn't know anything that was going on in my personal life. And they just decided to nitpick that I was 5 minutes or 10 minutes late here according to their schedule rather than talking to me. And that's a huge, huge negative effect of not having communication in a team. And there was just you could feel the tension in the office because I could tell something is wrong. And rather than talk to me like a human being, they decided to write mean letters behind my back. So
Wow.
at 24 years old, like, what not to do?
Serious.
I can share a good experience.
Yay!
We had I worked in an office with a bunch of ladies, and we had this one lady who, she was older and her health wasn't all that great, but and she was also one of those ones that she'd walk in and you would know whether it was one of her good days and you could approach her, or if it was one of her bad days and you stayed far, far away. And so I got to the point where I started recognizing this, and to show her empathy, on those days, I would do little things for her that I knew were difficult for her. Like I knew filing was difficult for her, so I would go and file her stuff for her. Or like walking, I knew was hard, so if I went and got a drink of water, I'd bring her back one or something. Just little things throughout the day, just to like let her know that I knew that things were rough that day. And it actually really took down some of her walls and made her a little bit more pleasant to be around. And so I totally think that it did, and we didn't communicate. Like I didn't tell her this is why I'm doing it. We didn't talk about it. I just did it, just to make her feel better, and it formed a bond kind of within our whole unit, because she became a little bit more pleasant to be around, and it made it so that we functioned a little bit better as a unit. And so I think the empathy definitely creates a better environment. And I don't think the communication always has to be verbal. I think sometimes it can be a physical communication to let them know. So that was just my experience.
That's a great experience.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Any other comments? Questions? Concerns? I do have to, like, I'm not sure. So, there's a guy in the company that his name is Josiah, and he never says sorry, like, ever. His way of saying sorry is to crack a joke to you. So, like, you'll be going and he'll be like mad, and then you'll be like driving, you get back to the shop, and he'll be like, "Hey, you want to hear this joke?" Or like, it's like, yeah, if I didn't know that you were sorry by saying that, it wouldn't have worked. But it kind of worked because I know when he's sorry. But I don't know. Weird story. So, kind of already answered this one too. We're just too good. How does sharing personal experiences and being vulnerable influence team dynamics?
I think it makes it so that we have a connection with each other, and it builds, like Melanie was saying, that friendship. And we're all human, and we like, to connect with people.
Sometimes, just sometimes.
At least for an hour a week.
Right. I'll be honest. So, gosh, I don't know how many of these groups I've been in. And I feel by the end, because you do start talking, like, Matt, we got to see your little baby. And you guys saw my daughter walk through, and I saw Samantha's cute little kitty. And, we all have these lives that we have. And so we get a glimpse. And as it goes further on, everybody just kind of becomes involved a little bit in our lives. And by the end of the semesters, I always feel like I'm losing a bunch of friends. And I've done this with a couple different groups. Like, I need to stay in touch with these people. They're my friends now. And of course, I don't even stay in touch with my friends that I've known for years. So I'm like, but by the end of every semester, I'm not kidding, I feel like, wow, that's such an awesome group of people. This is so good. And we need to stay together. And that's because you do develop these bonds 1 hour a week.
So true.
I think it was you were that were saying that you just got a group that you were like the mom of the group.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's super cool. Like, just like gaining a relationship with groups.
I didn't need 5 other boy sons, though. This poor one kid, I felt so bad. He had to do his part for the paper, and he was not getting it. And he calls me, "Can you help?" I'm like, "Okay, you just got to do it like this." Talked him through it. "Oh, okay, all right, I got it now. Okay, like, turn it now." But it was nice. No hard feelings, and it did. I did feel like mom, like, but at least I didn't have to feed him.
For sure. I think that oftentimes as we share personal experiences, especially for those people that are a little bit more dominant, like I'm pretty dominant, but I've seen like when I'm more like I don't want to listen to you because I know what I'm doing and you don't. I've seen that like be negative, whereas like if I'm more vulnerable, I let people like pick what they want to do and like I'm fine with things, then things just run so much better.
I think that's how we learn and grow, though. You know,
I agree.
being able to watch to take a step back and let someone else either take the lead or take a few steps or whatever it is. It helps us learn to grow, to be patient and, work on ourselves and work in a team.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't do that, then you end up like the guy in the last case study that ended up having to get called in by his boss because he was a little bit too aggressive. But, sorry, my laptop running out of battery. Let me read a question.
I was going to say, or you could take us on a house tour, Matt.
My wife would kill me if I let you see all of it.
What a good husband. You know some tricks already.
But yeah, so the next question is, do you have any personal examples of this? All right. Yeah, we're just going to skip that one because we did it. Sorry. So what can we do as individuals to initiate effective team behavior? It's a good question. You guys think?
Samantha already nailed that one.
Yes.
So what do you do if maybe the team doesn't know how to do this, but you want to have a better team? How do you like push them in the right direction but not be too pushy?
I think Stephanie has shared some of those examples of where like they just called the group together and said, hey, we're having like a team building exercise, I think those can work. They've done them at our where I work, where they called our whole department in and we had to do this exercise about learning about ourselves and what characters we have, and there's like 4 different groups that you could be a part of, and then they talked about what that group, what their title is, and then like what their characteristics are as far as their communication style, as far as their, and so it's really interesting to look over at like a group and you're thinking in your head, you're hearing what that group is, and then you look at the people in it and you're like, really? I didn't think that of that person, but okay, And so I think sometimes encouraging or making it so that it happens without choice can do that, can bring the group together, can kind of give them some ideas and help push them in that direction or pull them in that direction.
I like that.
I don't know.
What do you all think? As long as a team member knows that they are valued and that they are needed or wanted, I think that opens up a world of opportunity for everyone as a group.
Oh, sorry, I was distracted. He just peed through his diaper, so I don't actually even know what he said.
Well, I think finding common ground is the first thing, and I think at every class we have to do our introduction, the icebreaker discussion post, and I don't know about you, I search through and read through to find somebody that I do have something in common with. And sometimes I do. There was one class it was so hard. I was like, I'm the oldest lady in here, and everybody was young. And not that that's a bad thing, but everyone was young. I'm like, okay, how do I find common ground? So that's a huge, so I had put in there. I like to ask personal questions, about where you lived and those kinds of things. And a lot of times, as soon as you can find it, okay, you're a human and not just a person that you have to work with. You become personal, something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I always have like bad examples. Like every time, it's like, wow,
It's
I
not
must
just
just have to
you.
work from
Samantha,
the
you can
wrong
give us
thing.
the good one.
But yeah, I just know that I really enjoy talking to a lot of the guys on my crew, and like it, our crew's kind of been in like a weird situation because my brother runs it, but then he's kind of like moving into management instead of being a foreman, and so I am running it with another guy, and depending on who's in school and who's not, and it's been really interesting to just like talk with some of the guys on my crew, and like I think of my crew as like my brothers pretty much. Like we spend so much time together, and we know a lot about each other's lives, and so. But I think that the best way that I've kind of found to do that is just to, like you said, talk to them and like ask them about their lives and ask them about stories, because you get bored and you're like, so how'd you grow up? And I've learned more than a lot of the guys on both of our crews about one guy, because like he's completely different than what he grew up. He grew up in like the slums in Oakland, pretty much, and it's super cool. He's got a conscience. He's very diligent. He's just the best guy ever, but you wouldn't know it unless you talk to him. So I don't know. Just being able
So,
to talk to them.
so here's another question, because this was coming up as I'm listening to your little guy. And I'm at the tail, I'm at the other end of the spectrum now. But so what can you do as an individual to initiate effective team behavior? But how do we do that in our families? Because our families are teams, right?
Mhm.
And I scream and yell at mine all the time. Guess what? It doesn't work. But when I don't say anything, that doesn't work either. So what, how could we take this to our families? A level of our families. Do you guys have any special tricks?
I think it's that communication thing. Like you said, perfect example, yelling at them and not talking to them, neither one work. So it's and I know that from experience as well. So I think it's that kind of like everything we're learning, like have that family time in the family. You know how we have to make goals and priorities for us as individuals. We could do it as families and have our family sit down and have priorities, and then have those, treat it like an individual, but as a family, and have everyone work towards it, and make sure the rewards are really nice for the kids.
Right? That always works.
Sometimes, I don't know. I must just have hard kids.
No, I think that pretty much every teenager in the world must luck out.
I feel like it's an ever changing dynamics in the family. I don't know. I've got a 24-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 17, and a 13, and sometimes I have to change my tone or the way I do things with the 17-year-old and the 13-year-old, or what used to work doesn't always work now. Or so I feel like it's me as well, trying to be patient, try to talk. A lot of screaming going on, a lot of yelling, sometimes tears from them and me. But I think it's just that constant, like, making the effort, and it, like you said, Melanie, in your team and at home, like putting yourself out there to try to get to know someone on your team, opening yourself up, being vulnerable, I guess, and sharing. And same thing in the family is opening yourself up. Or I don't know, I feel like right now I'm, especially with this class and another class I'm taking, it's, trying to change things up and seeing what things don't work and what do work or can work. And there's definitely a difference between boys and girls.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Coming on the end of teenage things, I'm a little bit past it, but I actually have thought about it a lot, because I'm like, how could I be a good dad? Because it's not easy. But my mom, actually, she's like, because I'm the youngest, and so whenever she talks about it now, she talks about it from a grandma point of view. And she's like, yeah, and I'm 6'5", so I'm pretty tall. She's like,
Wow.
try spanking your son when they get taller than you. Like, that's kind of difficult, and I think, just like what you guys said, like, the thing that I learned probably the most from my mom was just like, she told me a lot of things, but I always knew that she loved me, and she never said anything like harsh or anything like that, but I always knew like her heart was in the right place, and she wanted me to be the best that I could be, and that helped. I didn't exactly listen right then, but in the long run, it helped me to become who I am now, and who I hopefully will be in the future. So
Nice.
you do have a lot with all your kids. There's still a chance.
All right, Matt. I'm coming after you in about 5 years, and we're going to see where things stand. Oh, but wait, you don't have to worry about that. I don't keep in touch with anyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We've hit that awkward moment when there's like 4 minutes left. It's like, there's nothing else to do.
Okay, well, I'll take a minute. I just wanted to, last week I was late, and I apologize. You guys were very patient with me, and it's just a rough week. I've got sick kids, and I'm sick, so I'm trying not to breathe heavy in the microphone. So hopefully I haven't been like heavy breathing the whole time and eating my cough drop. So I apologize, but thank you for being patient. It's been being sick, and the cough sucks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
It is the
Where are
worst.
you at again?
Who?
So I know I'm in Idaho. I know there's someone from Alaska and someone from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Alaska.
I'm Virginia. I'm Virginia.
I'm from California.
I'm from California. I'm from right outside of
California.
LA.
Cool.
Well, okay.
Where
Where are
in
you,
California?
Samantha?
Sacramento, outside of
Oh, okay.
Sacramento. Yeah. Where did you say you're from, Kenita?
I'm just outside of LA.
Ah, nice.
So just a few hours from you.
Just a few.
I was born in Stockton, Samantha. So,
Oh, nice.
so not too far. I've been to Sacramento plenty of times. That area, San Joaquin,
Yeah.
and I have to know how to spell that because your county of birth. I was like, Mom, you couldn't have lived anywhere like Greene County. No, San Joaquin. Try spelling that.
Nice.
I remember her telling me, you need to learn this. And now I know.
Great.
Yeah. Sea to shining sea. That's what we are.
That's awesome. And to be fair, for being from sea to shining sea, I think we get along pretty well.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with that left coast out there. I'm messing with you, and I'm not bringing politics into anything. I'm just saying a quick little joke. Clarify. I just messed up effective team behavior there. I apologize.
All good.
So we did say keep politics and religion out of everything.
That's right. Well, I'm probably going to stop the broadcast, but you can keep talking if you want.